Welcome in, y'all. Power rankings after week 1, and we're going to start it off at number 32. We're going to go through all of the teams, kind of talk about how they did in the week and why they are in which spot. So at 32, we have the Saints, no change from last week. I didn't see anything to bump them up over anyone else. They didn't turn the ball over. They played clean football. They had a blocked field goal. They played fairly well defensively, and they still lost the game by a full touchdown. They just aren't able to do enough offensively, really. And I expect mistakes to come in other games, and I do think they're a team that is on blowout watch most weeks. The Cardinals, I think the score is a little closer than the game was. I think they won by 7 over the Saints. I think about a 10-point gap felt more appropriate there. But moving on to number 31, that's the Cleveland Browns. And yeah, the argument that they played well against the Bengals, but at the same time, the Bengals were just a little slow on offense. The O-line wasn't holding up, which credit to the Browns defense, but that's just the Bengals start slow. I don't think it's overly impressive to be doing that to the Bengals in week 1. If they had gotten a win, we could talk different story, but those Browns mistakes or just bad luck at some parts crept up on them again. And, they're not going to be great. We know with Flacco, they're going to be able to move the ball, but they're going to lose a lot of games this season. Moving up, number 30, we have the Dolphins. I have them dropping 7 spots. It was absolutely atrocious. I all offseason was going back and forth with Dolphin fans. I was telling them it's not going to be a good year. I think I had them slated for 5 or 6 wins, but I did not expect that type of a beatdown in week 1. That was rough. They showed no fight, no fire. The Colts walked all over them. I mean, the Colts looked good, give them their credit, but the Dolphins looked so bad, so many mistakes, and I think it could be a really long year. I don't think this is a team that, with the locker room culture they have going right now, I don't think they're going to bounce back. So you could see them slip even further down this list. I just think they have more talent than the 2 teams behind them. Moving on now to number 29, the Giants. No change from last week. 0-1. That felt about right for that game. I thought 21-6 was the final. I think the game was a little closer than that because that kind of looks blowout-ish, 21-6. The offense just couldn't finish. They couldn't finish when they got down there. They truly just weren't moving the ball that well. The defense looked solid against a very, very high-powered offense in Washington, so that is something you can admire from the game. But, we knew it was going to be a longer year for the Giants, especially with the tough schedule. I think it could be it might not be before long when we see Jackson Dart. I think that'd be fun, and I think why not? Maybe give him a few weeks, get settled into that routine, and then get him out there and see what he can do. But moving up to number 28, I have the Titans. I had them rising 2 spots here. They had their struggles. I don't think they're going to be a great team this year, but they really gave Denver some fits, at least offensively for Denver. They were definitely outmatched. Broncos were the better team, but they forced two interceptions. A fumble. I like the way the Titans were playing, especially on defense. On offense, they struggled. 3.4 yards a carry, only 112 yards passing, only 71 yards rushing. They didn't even reach 200 total offensive yards. So that's going to be a struggle for them all year. They have the Rams next week. We'll see how they do. I'm very curious if the defense continues to play well. But keep in mind the Broncos also started slow last year, so maybe they have a little bit of Bengals in them, and that's going to be something they tend to do. Moving on now, the Carolina Panthers. And, this is a weird one. I thought they would play better. I did have them losing. I thought they would lose, but I thought they would put up more of a fight. They kind of went out with a whimper in this one. They really couldn't do much. 50 Bryce Young throwing 2 picks, only completing 51% of his passes is rough. That's not going to win many games. Only 154 passing yards. Not a good day for the Panthers. I didn't see the entirety of this game because, that weather delay pushed it into that late window where some more interesting stuff was going on. But it was a rough day for the Panthers and not the start you want if you're hoping to kind of be a bounce back or breakout team this year. But moving on, the New England Patriots, man, talk about disappointing. The Raiders are solid. The Raiders are going to win some games. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but they're solid. Don't get me wrong. But the Patriots, that's a game you got to win. This is a game you have a lot of offseason hype. Drake May year 2, they're wanting to, with an easy schedule, make a playoff push. You can't be losing at home to teams that probably won't make the playoffs. On paper, 287 yards passing for May. The pick was bad. I didn't like that. Only 3.3 yards per carry. That is not good. That's not going to win many games if you can't establish a running game like that. They did keep running it. They ran 18 times. It's actually not that many for only 60 yards. So rough there. The defense was a little leaky against the Geno Smith and the Raiders passing game. Bowers torched him for over 100. Myers almost had 100. Geno had 362. They did good on the ground game, holding the Raiders to 2.3 yards per carry. That is great. That's a great sign for the Patriots. And they have a great chance next week to kind of shake this one off and go play a Dolphins team that really looked bad in week 1. But next up, we do have the Seattle Seahawks. And I struggled to know where to place them. Coming into the year, I wasn't high on them, and I was lower than them on a lot of people. I know especially their fans were very hyped up about the Seahawks, and I had my concerns, mainly on the offense. There's not too much concern about the defense, and the defense played very well. They forced a lot of mistakes from San Fran, but the offense, I didn't love it. Only 3.2 yards a carry, only 150 passing yards. They just couldn't really get moving all too well. Only got sacked once, which is, nice for what was one of the worst O-lines in the league last year. But they just, it was just lackluster. That was a lackluster game. And the Niners kept squandering chances with missed field goals and turnovers. And feels like the Niners should have won that game by more. I did not like the way the Seahawks looked in week 1. But on the same time, their defense was respectable and will keep them in most games this season. I don't see Seattle as a team that's going to get blown out this year very often, if at all. But yeah, I like them here at 25. I don't think they're making the playoffs or anything. Although I know plenty of people disagree with that. Moving on to 24, we have the New York Jets. Wow. 34-32 from the Jets and the Steelers. That is not what you expected from those two teams. People expected a low-scoring slugfest, and instead they gave us a beautiful shootout at the Meadowlands. And it was a lot of fun. Justin Fields looked good. He looked good. 218 passing, 72% completion percentage with no interceptions. That is great. That's exactly what we want to do. He had 48 yards rushing with 2 rushing touchdowns. The Jets put 182 yards on the ground, only 4.7 per carry, but that's pretty solid. The Jets offense looked great. They looked really, really good, very promising for the season. The issue was their defense. Rodgers was kind of carving them up a little bit, but it was, the turnover. Really what swung the game was that kick return fumble. That was brutal. I think the Jets win if that doesn't happen. But it was kind of weird, the Steelers put up 34, but it felt like the Jets were getting a lot of pressure on Rodgers, felt like they were getting to him. The Steelers really couldn't run the ball, 2.7 yards per carry. I think the Jets defense did better than it feels like they did. There's no moral victories, they're 0-1, but I think it was a very promising week. We'll see how they look week 2. The Bills come to town, and we'll see how they look. That's going to be, they're probably going to lose that game, but can they kind of keep it a game, or is it going to be they're down by 2 scores at halftime and then it's just garbage time? So we'll see. I think they might be a little better than we thought this year, but for now, I like them sitting down there at 24. Next up, though, the Atlanta Falcons. That was a tough one. That was a tough one to lose. I'm low on the Falcons this year if you've heard all my other videos, but I will completely admit they looked pretty solid. It felt like they definitely could have won that game and maybe even should have. 298 through the air for Penix. 1 touchdown, no turnovers for him. But the problem was the ground game. They ran it 28 times, only managing 69 rushing yards and 2.5 per carry. That's not going to cut it. Their 4th down, they got stuffed that one time. They were having trouble inside the 5. They eventually got in after several plays with goal to go with that last touchdown for them. So the running game's a concern, but they looked solid. And the defense really, they gave the Bucs some fits early. It was a bit leakier on the back half, but I don't think this is anything too big to worry about for Falcons fans. I'm dropping you 2 just because that's what the Falcons do. They lose close games like that, and that's my concern with them. My concern with being low on them this year, I don't think by any stretch of the imagination are they a blowout candidate. I'd be surprised to see many teams in this league blow them out, but I just don't trust them when push comes to shove to get the job done and win the game, whether it's a late turnover or a stupid missed field goal by Koo. I don't trust them. So they're sitting down there at 23. Moving on up to 22, the Raiders. The Raiders, this is a team, I think, the closer it got to the season, the better I felt about the Raiders. I think I made my prediction for them like a month ago, and I had them doing fairly bad, but I definitely have changed my mind since then. And, I think I stuck with my guns, picking the Patriots to win that one, but the gut said otherwise, and I should have listened. Raiders got the win. Raiders are a team this year, the more I look at them, the more I like them, but not in like they're going to come surprise people and win the division. No. I don't mean in that way. I just mean this is a team with a very high floor. They have a low ceiling, high floor. It feels like they're not going to exceed 14th, 15th maybe in these rankings throughout the whole year, but I feel like I'd be surprised to see them drop below 24 or so. They're going to be right in that middle-ish of the pack. They're solid. They're going to be in just about every game. They're going to give good teams troubles. But ultimately, I don't think they're good enough to truly, truly compete. We'll see. Maybe they prove me wrong. But this was a good start. It's a great start to the year, and you have a chance to go 2-0 in a very big way next week. The Chargers come to town on Monday Night Football, and if they win that, all right, we can start talking. But that would be 2-0, but, one game at a time. We will see. But moving on from the Raiders there at 22, this was a very, very tough one to place. I got the Texans down here. A big drop for them. And I think part of it, I don't think they played that bad to have like a 7-spot drop. But part of it, I think, was I also felt like I had them a little high in the preseason. I think I was just felt the pressure of, this is a team I'm predicting to win the division. Everyone's having them win their division. They're a solid team. Like, how could they not be up here? But we saw a lot of struggles that we saw last year in this same game. The Texans just couldn't move the ball. The offensive line, Stroud was facing a lot of pressure. The Rams were doing very well against the run game. They couldn't finish drives. They had 3 field goals. A couple of those were very long field goals. So it's not even like they were getting down into the red zone. I'm not even sure they entered the red zone the entire game. So lots to work on for the Texans. The defense looked solid. The defense looked great, but we know it's going to be a good defense. We need that offense to start doing some stuff there in Houston. And it's a little harsh, but they got to get their act together. And until then, I'm keeping them down here at 21. Right above them, it's Jacksonville. I have Jacksonville up 5 spots, up to 20 here. Jags played great. They did exactly what they needed to do in this spot. They took care of a team that should be inferior and at home, and they won the game. They averaged 6.3 yards per carry, which it was really helped out by the 70-yard run by Etienne, but they had 200 rushing yards, which is a recipe for success. And Lawrence was all right, 178 yards, touchdown, a pick. He was all right, but the Jaguars, that made me feel fairly confident in them, the way they played. I like the defense. They did well against the Panthers. And they have a big chance next week to go into Cincinnati, who starts slow. who the first few weeks has troubles, they can go into Cincinnati, steal a win, and all of a sudden you're 2-0, and you got division title on your mind if you're the Jaguars, especially with how rough the Texans looked in week 1. So we will see. Big week for the Jags. They're up to 20. At 19, it's the Cowboys. This was a tough one to place as well. They lost, so I have them knocked down a couple pegs just because there's some teams that won that just had to jump over them. But they looked good. Especially offensively. They slowed a bit in the second half, but I really liked what I saw from them. They put up a very true fight against the Eagles. Just fell short. That just felt like they should have won that game. And they just couldn't. It was frustrating to see. And I'm curious to see what they do next week. I think next week will tell us a lot about this Cowboys team. They're home against the Giants, a team they should beat, And if the Giants give them troubles, it's like, oh, okay, so the Cowboys maybe just caught the Eagles off guard, and they're not actually that solid. But if they can go in there, kind of dominate the Giants, you're like, you know what? This Cowboys team could be very respectable this year. They do have a lot of good pieces on the roster. I totally believe they can put together a pretty decent season despite the Micah Parsons trade. But we'll see. Number 18, not really going to talk much here. They play tonight. I'm posting this Monday. They play tonight. I think the Bears are going to win. We will see. It's going to be a tight game. I think the Bears are underdog by like 1.5. Very curious to see that one, but that is tonight. But moving on, number 17, we have the Cardinals. And I wasn't exactly sure where to put the Cards either. They didn't tell me that much this week in New Orleans. They played well, though. They went on the road, did what they were supposed to, beat an inferior Saints team, start 1-0. They didn't overly impress me though, and I thought that was a great chance to do so, playing a very weak Saints team, and they kind of stumbled to a win. They should have won by more. You had the blocked field goal, stuff like that. But yeah, not too much. We'll see next week. They host the Panthers. I'm hoping to get more out of them in that game, but we will see. I think the Cardinals have a lot of potential this year. I think you got to look out for the Cardinals. They're going to give some teams some trouble. But yeah, have them there at 17. Number 16, man, they looked good. The Indianapolis Colts, y'all. I've been a Colts truther all offseason. Now, I'm going to jump ahead here. I didn't even have them winning the division. Let's be clear. There was so many people having them at 4 or 5 wins. And I was like, dude, this roster's very solid. I've heard good things about Daniel Jones. There's no reason they can't win, 8, 9 games. I think I had them winning 9 games. And I like this team, man. I don't like them to make a run in the playoffs. I don't think they have what it takes to go toe-to-toe with some of those teams. But I think you put this Colts team up against a lot of the inferior teams, and they're just going to get the job done. They're going to win those games. Feels like they've been doing it for years and ending right around the middle of the pack. So they looked great against the Dolphins. And next week's a big one. If they do beat the Broncos, all of a sudden it could be that conversation where, hey, you know what? Are we having serious talks about the Colts? We'll see. It's a great chance for them to start 2-0. They're home. That'll be a fun one. I'm very excited for that game. That's going to be a blast. So we'll see if the Colts can keep it up. I really liked what I saw in week 1. They were smooth. Daniel Jones looked confident, in control. Very limited mistakes from that Colts team. They just looked very, very good. Now 15, the Niners. They tried to give the game away several times, but they managed to get a win in the end. And a much-needed win, a road divisional game. That's a huge one to pick up a week 1 win, start 1-0. And I can't say I'm overly confident in them. I didn't know where to place them. I wanted that next week they go to New Orleans. I don't know how much that'll tell us. They should beat New Orleans by a decent amount, but we will see. I need a few more weeks of the Niners to really get a good feeling for them. They have a lot of new pieces, some young pieces, and I think it's going to take some time to really discover what they are, and I want to see them against a few more opponents. For right now, I kind of stuck them about the same spot. They only moved up 1 to 15. And at 14, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers, a game that they won, and you feel great about it. They're 1-0, but I have my concerns. The Jets carved up the Steelers defense. This Steelers defense that's been getting a lot of hype. And the Jets were consistently drive after drive marching down the field. and that's just not a good look for Pittsburgh. Rodgers played very, very well, though. The ground game couldn't get going for the Steelers, and the O-line looked a little questionable, but the good news is Rodgers looked great. If Rodgers can play to that level, they're going to win some games this year. They're going to be competitive in every single one, and they'll have a very good chance at the playoffs. But the defense has to do better. You can't allow that to happen. They play a weaker offense next week. They play home against Seattle, so we will see how that one goes. That'll be a very interesting game. Tell us some about these two teams. But right now, 14 felt like the spot. I felt like I couldn't bump them up too much because of my defense concerns, but at the same time, Rodgers looked great. So moving on to number 13, overreaction, maybe a little bit, but it's the Detroit Lions dropping down 8 spots to number 13. They looked bad. They looked horrible. They looked all out of sorts. I know the new coordinators thing. I thought they'd come out with fire, because everyone was dissing them in the offseason, maybe including myself. I think I don't even have them winning the division. And they came out flat. Packers just dominated from the get-go. And it's week one. Week one lies. So we will see. It's, I don't want to overreact too much. This might be a huge overreaction. But I had to be honest with myself. I'm like picking between teams, and I'm like, I don't, after seeing that, I don't know how many teams I could pick them to beat. They look out of sorts. But we will see. Next week, home against Chicago. Chicago, I think, is going to be good this year, and they're going to put up a great fight, but Detroit needs to win that game. No excuses to lose that one at home. If Detroit starts 0-2, we got real problems there. But moving on to number 12, not going to spend time on it. Vikings, Monday Night Football. I think this is a very, very good roster, and I'm very pumped to see how McCarthy does tonight. We'll see. Moving on to number 11, the Bengals. I don't even want to spend too much time on this one because they start slow. I guess that's just what they do. I guess it's their thing forever now. But the difference is this time they won, and that's huge. You know what? Considering what happened the last few years, I don't care how bad they looked or how slow the offense was. They're 1-0. They don't ask how, they ask how many. And they're 1-0. Not too much to talk about. I want to see them more as the season goes on, see that offense start to click again. I think they're going to be just fine, but couldn't really move them up for the win. But I didn't really want to knock them because they usually start slow anyways, so just keeping them right here at 11 felt right. And then moving on to number 10, the Denver Broncos. The offense struggled. Bo Nix struggled. He did not inspire confidence in me. The Titans hung around that entire game, which is something I did not anticipate. I'll be completely honest with you. I thought the Broncos were going to walk all over them. Bo Nix had the 2 interceptions. He had a lost fumble. Just not a good game. The Broncos did have 5 yards of carry, which is nice. So the ground game was working, but through the air, it was not. They need to do better. But again, they started slow last season. Bo Nix started slow last season. He was a rookie, so that was kind of more what I was thinking. But maybe, like I said earlier in this video, they have a bit of Bengals in them, and that is just something they're going to do. We'll see. I think next week's a great time to find out. On the road in Indianapolis, who looked very good. If you're the Broncos team we all thought you were to start the year, you better go in there and win, no matter how good the Colts looked last week. But if you go in there, you struggle again, and maybe you even lose, maybe some alarm bells on the Broncos. It's, did we hype this team up too early? We'll see. That's going to be a game I'm definitely looking forward to next week. Number 9, the Washington Commanders here, going up 1 spot. I just, not too much from them. The offense was a little slow against the Giants, but the Giants have a pretty decent defense. Daniels got sacked 3 times, but the ground game was very, very efficient though. 6.9 a carry for 220 yards, 233 yards through the air. They played fine. Nothing stood out to me at an insane level watching this one. But they're fine. That's exactly how the game should have gone. They took care of business. They're 1-0. And we're going to find out a lot more about this Washington team Thursday when they head to Green Bay. What a Thursday night game to kick off the year of the Thursday Night Football. So super pumped for that game. Looking forward to it. But right now they don't move too much. They sit here at number 9. Number 8, Is this another overreaction? Yeah, it probably is. But as the Chiefs falling down 4 spots, and they just looked a little out of sorts. They picked it up in the second half. They looked much better, and they were right in the game. They had a chance to win this one. I don't know about a chance to win, but they would definitely were in it. Not many mistakes, not too many turnovers, but Worthy's out now, and you're already missing Rice, for 6 games. So we'll see. I think it happens to teams, and I don't want to sound alarm bells yet, considering, the Patriots would go through this every year. They'd lose one game and it'd be like, oh, Patriots are done, and then they'd go 14-2. So I expect the Chiefs to be just fine, but it was hard to keep them above some of these other teams that did win games in week 1 because the Chiefs just didn't look that great. But I think they have a chance. If they can at home beat Buffalo, I think they'll jump right back up to top 4 for me. Home against Philly, next week. That's going to be a very exciting game. You have a Super Bowl rematch in week 2. That's the Brady Burkhardt game on Fox, 4:25 Eastern. That's going to be a blast. And I'm going to have to figure out who I'm picking in that one. So we will see. Jumping in at number 7, it's Tampa Bay. This is a team, can't move them. I didn't want to move them down because I thought they played fine, but I couldn't really move them up. The offense was a little slow, especially to start the game, a little slower than I would have liked to see. But they really picked it up at the end. Clutch Baker Mayfield, the pass to Buka. That was great to win the game. They bailed out a little by a Koo missed field goal, but at the same time, the Falcons got bailed out by Tampa missing that extra point. So, at the end of the day, they're 1-0, and they won on the road against the team that has the best chance of giving them some trouble in the division. So, great start to the year for the Bucs, and I feel more confident than ever in my pick for them to win the division. I feel great about that still. So sitting here at 7, I felt like not much up or down movement for them. And then similar story for the Rams at 6. Felt like I couldn't knock them down. I thought they actually played a very good game despite a kind of ugly 14-9 score. But like I just said, a little ugly, so I didn't want to boost them up. The big thing for the Rams that stood out was the defense. The defense was great. The pass rush was as advertised. It picked up where it left off last year. They were all over Stroud. But the big thing was they were able to kind of get on top of that running game. The Rams were gashed time and time again last year on the ground. And you remember it against Saquon Barkley. I mean, he ran all over them in the 2 games they played. So that was one of their biggest priorities, was shoring up that run defense. And I think they did. I think they looked very good on the ground. The numbers don't scream out to you. The Texans did have 4.2 yards per carry, but it felt like they weren't having much luck running the ball. They didn't really break many big ones, so I think that's a win for the Rams. And the Rams offense, they did look good. They looked a little rusty to start the game, and then Puka, was in and out a little bit with the injury on his head. But they were moving fine, and they were going to score a 3rd touchdown, it looked like, before a fumble inside the 10 by the tight end. So I thought the Rams looked good. I think they're going to do just fine. I think it was very reassuring that their defense did well, because we know the Rams offense has started slow several years in a row. We know the offense is going to be just fine with McVay, Stafford, Adams, Puka, Kyren, as long as they stay healthy. The big question mark was, can the defense make the step up? Because that's what they really need to be a contender this year. And I think it looked great holding the Texans to 9 points. So Rams sitting there at 6. At 5, we have the other LA team. We got 2 LA teams in the top 6 here. It's the Chargers. And you could make a case to go a little higher, but I just think the 4 teams top are just another level. But the Chargers looked great, man. I know they lost the left tackle to start the year, and that sucks, but this team looked very, very good, very smooth. Justin Herbert was pushing that ball downfield. The passing game was cruising against a very, very good Chiefs team. The Chargers looked great. But they gotta continue to do this though. Week 1 can lie. The Saints looked great to start the year last year, so we'll see. Maybe that can be more relayed to the Colts this year. But next week, Monday Night Football at the Raiders, who just got a big win on the road against the Patriots. That's another test for the Chargers. They need to continue to play well. They need to go in there and get that win. You can't be losing that game. So we'll see. I loved what I saw from the Chargers, though, and I like having them up here at 5. And then number 4, man, what a devastating game for the Baltimore Ravens. They were scoring at will. They were up 40-25 with just a few minutes left. I thought it was over, and somehow they've managed to lose the game. Like, the Ravens have so many years in a row. It's so frustrating to see that continue to happen to them. And, you can make the argument as far as roster-wise, skill-wise, that they could easily be in the number 1 on this list. And I think they could. I think they might be the best roster and team in the NFL. But you can't keep doing that. You can't keep losing games in ridiculous ways, especially the big ones. So I just don't trust them yet. They need to start doing that. But they're still an elite team. I think they can go toe-to-toe with anyone, and really they should beat anyone in this league. So number 4 for them. Number 3, it's the Packers. I have them up 9 spots. Now, mind you, my last power rankings was recorded before the Parsons trade, so they probably would have jumped up a little from 12, but now I have them up at 3, and that they looked the part of a Super Bowl contender. They made it a very loud statement and going to get Parsons that they're competing this year, and they looked great. They played a Lions team who's a very good Lions team. I don't care about them losing the coordinators. The Lions have an elite roster, and the Packers dominated from the get-go. Immediately, it was kind of apparent. It's like, oh god, the Packers are going to win this game, and they could win it big. And they didn't end up pouring it on, really. The score looks closer than the game was. The final score was 27-13, but the Packers looked so good. Again, can they keep it up? It's 1 week. They got to do it again. Thursday night's a huge test. I'm going to hype it up one more time. What a game. Commanders, Packers, Thursday Night Football, Lambeau Field. It's going to be a blast, and I think we're going to learn a lot about the two teams, but it should be a very close, fun game. But number 2 and number 1, I think, are pretty obvious. Number 2, well, not in which order, but number 2, I got the Eagles. I dropped them a spot. You could flip-flop these. They concerned me a bit. The offense stalled out a bit in the second half against the Cowboys. The Cowboys were walking all over them in the first half, but they still got the job done. They won the game, but they could have lost that one against a Cowboys team that shouldn't be that great this year. So I don't know. The Eagles they didn't inspire a ton of confidence, but they didn't give me too many worries. I'm not like worried about the Eagles or anything. They're going to be just fine. Still the class of the NFC. We'll see this week going on the road to Kansas City. That's a big game. That's a big game for the Super Bowl rematch. Obviously, the Eagles are looking to have that game go the same way it did in New Orleans, but the Chiefs have other plans there, so we'll see. Number 1, all that leaves is the Buffalo Bills. What a game. What a comeback. Do they deserve this number 1 spot? I don't know. I don't know who does. The Ravens, obviously, in my opinion, would have been number 1 if they had held on and won that one. But the Bills coming back and winning makes things kind of weird. So I don't know. I think the Bills are very good. Are they the best team in football? It's hard to say. But I'll tell you what, with Josh Allen, they can win any game. Then they can come back from whatever. So, Bills are 1-0 and a huge 1-0 because that was one of the toughest games on their schedule. And the big part is that's going to go a long way in home field advantage for the playoffs because that's a tiebreaker. I mean, that's devastating for the Ravens because now these two teams, say they both finish 13-4, boom, Ravens are going to have to go through Buffalo at some point in the playoffs in order to make it to the Super Bowl. Buffalo could get home field advantage throughout. So big win, not just to be 1-0, but to have that win over the Ravens. So we'll see. Let me know, of course, where you disagree with the rankings. And I'm sure these rankings will be completely turned upside down in just a few weeks. So excited to see it all play out. Let me know what you think.